Hello, we are recording once again another pre-race prediction. I'm doing this one pretty late at night. I'm going to be publishing this in about 4 hours. I don't know how long before the first practice session that will be because I think it's another sprint weekend. I'm not really a big fan of the sprint weekends. They're not good for my data collection. Well, they kind of are and they kind of aren't, but they make things a little bit more complicated, and I just do not like sprint races in general. It sucks. There's going to be sessions going on while I'm at work that I can't watch. I get it. There's more competitive sessions, but at the same time, people can't watch them. Sprint races are awful. Anyways, yeah. So this is take two because I realized I changed up my formatting a little bit. I wanted to shake things up a little bit, give things a little bit more variety. I'm still working on it to a degree to at least change it between qualifying and the race to give a little bit more mix up. But we'll get there. We'll get there. This is still something new, and I can't really argue with the numbers I'm generating. I just have to figure out a better way to organize them, I think is what I need to do. Anyways, let's get into it. Oh, it did not do my intro this time around. Okay. Well, we're starting with qualifying, so the local boy is going to be down at the bottom, I think, pretty much all of this weekend. I don't think Williams have a great car. I think for this weekend, they have the third worst car. I've come up with a way to try and evaluate the car's performance to a degree to at least add some variability between races. And of course, probably my measurement statistics and data that I'm using are probably not perfectly clear. For example, in my opinion, I think for this track, I think Haas might have the second best car. The problem is they kind of have mediocre drivers. Ugh. Yeah, they don't really have the drivers that are going to bring it home, in my opinion, for that team. So for that reason, I think the three bottom teams as far as car performance goes are Sauber right at the bottom, Alpine right there with them, and Williams just above. So between that, I just kind of go off of driver ratings and previous race performance to a degree. I think that's why Bottas and Zhou kind of just got barely above Ocon and Gasly in this case, because the Alpines have been bad for a longer time period. I think it's going to take a few more race performances for those Alpines to move up a little bit in my prediction information. But Sargent remains firmly at the bottom. Then Gasly, Ocon, Zhou, and Bottas all out in Q1. But yeah, I don't think that would shock anyone. And then for Q2, I've got Albon, Ricciardo, Tsunoda, Magnussen, and Stroll. So of this bunch, I think Magnussen would actually be kind of the disappointment of this group because they have a car that seems to be fast in the straights right now. And there's a lot of straights in Miami. And I don't think he's just going to be able to get that performance out of the car that some of these other drivers could. Yeah, Stroll, I think, will not necessarily underperform because in rankings, I actually think they would have the sixth best car. But I think P11 is kind of actually, for once, as expected for him. Now, it's hard to rate him because Fernando always gets so much out of the car. It kind of brings Stroll down a little bit, but based off of that information, I don't think Stroll is actually doing too bad as of right now. And I just heard my own words and I'm laughing at my own self for what the heck did I say? I mean, he was awful in Saudi and awful in China too. He's had some bad races. But he's also had some semi-decent performances. He just needs to get some consistency. At least if he's somewhere in the middle on a regular basis, that would be livable for him, in my opinion. And then we got our final group in Q3. Obviously, the Red Bulls will be at the front. I think they will get a lockout. I'm not sure if they've even actually had a lockout yet this season, but I think Miami will be a good chance for that, followed by Norris. I think McLaren have the second best car for this weekend, and then the Ferrari drivers and Piastri. I simply think the Ferrari drivers, as of right now, are getting more out of the car than Piastri. He seems to be, I wouldn't say struggling, but he's just kind of doing the job to a degree. It's almost looking like he's putting in that second driver role to a bit this season, which kind of is sad considering how hyped up he is. I don't think he's doing bad by any means. He's had a lot of bad luck. Looking at damage, I think he's had damage in a couple races. And then followed behind him, I think Alonso's just he's got amazing one lap pace that'll get him up pretty high, at least in qualifying. Then the two Mercedes and Hulkenberg, because Haas have a good car, I think, for this race, and Hulkenberg's good over one lap. I won't be surprised if it goes even higher during qualifying. It wouldn't shock me one bit whatsoever. And then when it comes to the race order, I don't think there's going to be too much drastic changes. Obviously some, but I need to work on my formatting to allow for a little more variability, because most of the drivers, as far as my calculations go, I've got holding their positions, which obviously is not realistic. There's gonna be some change, but right now my math is pointing to this, so my math is probably wrong. We'll evaluate that after the race, of course, but yeah, I think Russell and Alonso will end up swapping positions. I think Mercedes have the better car, so I won't be surprised if Alonso drops back even further. I could see Hulkenberg having a good race if their tires hold up. I don't think that's really an issue of theirs this season, but we'll see. I think he's just not that next level driver to get that performance out of the car, as much as this is a car that, if that had the right drivers, I wouldn't be shocked if it could be like in that like good points battles, like with the Ferraris, with the McLarens. I think the Haas have a good car right now, but don't have the drivers to go with it simply, at least for this race. I haven't evaluated the full season or anything along those lines. And then Stroll will just finish outside of the points. That won't be too shocking. Magnussen will finish outside of the points. That will be disappointing considering where I think their car is right now. Ricardo and Tsunoda, I think, will end up swapping places. I think Ricardo's doing a little bit of a better job right now with his racecraft, so to speak. I think Tsunoda, as of right now, is the faster driver overall. Granted, China was awful, just absolutely awful for him. But I think Ricardo just gets that edge in the actual wheel-to-wheel racing. Granted, Tsunoda did look decent in Japan there, but I think Ricardo just has that extra bit of patience that helps him. Meanwhile, China wasn't his fault, but Tsunoda does have like a tendency to race a little bit closer, but we'll see. He needs to work on his patience, and we'll see how it goes for him. Albon, I think they've got the third worst car, but I think he's the best driver of that group as of right now, so I think P15 is a very reasonable spot for him. Zhou and Bottas, I think they could maybe potentially swap positions. Bottas seems to be struggling in the races quite a lot and gets a lot of bad luck in their pit stops. I don't know what it is. They suck. I won't be surprised if these guys drop down to like 18 and 19 and Ocon and Gasly move up. I think Ocon's having the better season right now. I don't know where the math came from that had Gasly swapping ahead of him, but that's where my math pointed out to, so that's what I'm going to put in my predictions. And anyways, that kind of wraps things up for how things stand, but I will put my like arbitrary pre-race predictions for the awards. I'm going to put George Russell for driver of the day simply because that is the only battle that occurred for points that had a swap in positions. So I put George Russell as driver of the day. Worst driver of the day, I put Valtteri Bottas. He's going to have some issue. There's just going to be something that happens, and I think I won't be surprised if it goes even worse for him simply because he qualifies good. He does tend to do a very good job in qualifying, but that Sauber car is just awful for this track in my opinion. They just don't seem to have it between, so I won't be surprised if they actually drop down below Alpine. I think he could drop more. So driver that's going to over-deliver for this race, I think, is Fernando Alonso. I think on paper right now they have the sixth best car for this race at least. I couldn't remember the word. It is late at night. So I think the fact that he's going to be qualifying P7, competing and maybe scoring P8 in the race, I think that is over delivering on the car. And then the driver that's going to under deliver, I put as Kevin Magnussen because I think this is a car with the right drivers. This weekend could compete for a podium. It's not out of the question. But these Haas drivers are not the drivers to get it done. That is my opinion. So I think the fact that I've got Kevin Magnussen outside of the points in a car that should be competing for a podium at this track, he's the driver that's under delivering at this point. Yeah, not necessarily worst driver of the day because it's really hard to measure unless you're just having an absolutely nightmare weekend, getting outperformed by a ton of people. I don't even really have a solid measurement to put Bottas within that window. But yeah, this is what I've put. So let me know what you all think. Where am I right? Where am I wrong? How the heck am I getting these numbers? I don't know. But this is what I've got. This is what we'll evaluate after the weekend. Thank you very much for watching. Tune in on Twitch or TikTok. We do some live streams over there for F1 Manager and just whatever video games I feel like playing. And yeah, come hang out. Thank you very much for watching. Have a good one.